my framework is around called Stop It. You have to scan yourself, first of all, and be honest with what you are feeling. How are you showing up? So, example, if you find your stomach in knots, if you were just at opening emails, do meetings make you cause anxiety? Do certain people make you anxious? Are you short-tempered with your family? Are you even having constipation, muscle pain, your gut problems? There are many signs that we have physically and signs that we might see in ourselves at work in our interactions, having trouble making decisions, micromanaging. All these things can, in the workplace, are signs that we're stressed, burned out, and may have had some trauma. Some trauma comes from our life before work, and then there's trauma that happens in the workplace.
Welcome to the Well to Lead podcast, where we explore the dynamic relationship between personal wellness and effective leadership. Hey, good morning, Well to Lead family. How you guys doing today? This is your host, Bobby Davis here. I appreciate you guys joining us this morning. Hey, listen, folks, we have a special guest in our studios, Dr. Melanie Gray. Dr. Melanie is a registered nurse, entrepreneur, trauma-informed care expert, and wellness coach. Dr. Melanie, welcome to Well to Lead this morning. How you doing?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here.
So how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you evolved into what you're doing today?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm a nurse with over 20 years of experience in higher education and acute care leadership. I have a master's in nursing education and a doctorate in online learning and curriculum design. And I came to helping people because around burnout, when I found myself after 20 years at the bedside, burnt out because I was working so much, lots of various shifts, taking care of my parents, my father who had dementia, taking care of my mother who was aging, just all the things and all the stresses of work. And I realized I had to pivot if I was going to save myself and be able to go the distance in my career. And so I did that. I changed how, not that I worked, but I changed how I worked.
Okay. That's important. The last piece you shared there. I mean, how you work. I think that's the key to making successful pivots, especially when it's affecting you as an individual. But let me ask you this, Dr. Melanie. Tell us a little bit about how did you evolve into the medical industry? Was this always an aspiration, or you just kind of stumbled upon this industry?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth that stays with you and your audience, Mr. Davis. When I graduated from high school, there are only 5 things a young woman was going to be offered to do, especially if they were a woman of color. That was to get married, work in a factory, be a secretary, and if you got to go to college, a teacher, a social worker, or a nurse. And so my mother was a nurse, and she was very adamant, because I grew up in the day, Mr. Davis, when you didn't get to come home and live in your mother's basement. When you were
Right.
grown and they had done their job, you were expected to be grown.
That's
So
right. That's right.
I said, I better do something where I know I can support myself because I can't come back and I'm
That's
not
right.
built for a lot of, being homeless. I wasn't built for too much suffering. So I better work. And so nursing was a good fit.
That's so interesting. You bring the point up about you, and I was raised the same way. I mean, there was not an option for me to say, hey, you can just hang around the crib for another 10 years after you graduate high school and figure it
No,
out.
they weren't gonna understand that.
No,
They did
no,
not understand. Okay.
you're right. So now it's totally different, right? I mean,
Totally different.
they could be at home, until they're in their 40s and stuff. And it's amazing, but I'm thankful that, and it sounds like this was impactful in you getting into the nursing field. But I also realized that it was these types of things that help us mature and take on responsibility or learn to take on responsibility at an early age, which I think helps as you continue to age.
Yeah, because, when we were growing up, Bobby, there were people weren't talking about having trouble adulting.
Yep.
What was adulting? You're grown. You have responsibility. You do it. I
That's
mean,
right.
evolving into adulting,
Yeah.
really? Fear of adulting? And this whole thing around scary Mondays because of the stress. I mean, it was Monday. You sucked it up, right?
That's
Now,
right.
this is not I'm not saying that to make fun of the stress people are actually having. But
Right.
it is and there is a difference,
It is.
and there's a difference in being an adult, a young adult, and trying to make it now, because when I started in my you gonna laugh now, y'all don't laugh, but my salary for my first professional job, college degreed RN, I want to add that, with a college degree, my first job was $6 an hour. Bobby,
Wow.
and I was excited. I was like, "Oh, Lord, mama, I got a job. I'm making 6.25 an hour." But the, interesting thing about that was that I lived well. I had an apartment. I had a car. I still took a little vacation here and there.
Wow.
I was a young 20-year-old like people listening to you. And I was still trying to go out on the weekend too, but you could go
Yeah.
out, you could save $5 and
That's right.
$5 can take you out all weekend,
It's
right?
so good.
People
You're
used to
right.
put pretzels and popcorn in for free. But you're looking at a young person now and they're making maybe 50,000 on their first job. They're not making it very well when rents are 100 or 1,500 or more,
No, you're right.
right?
You're right.
And they
You're right.
have bills I didn't have. That's
You're right.
stress.
You're
There
right.
was not an internet bill, a cable bill, a
Yep.
cell phone bill. It's a different world, and it does take more for young people or people of any age to really get to the point where they can own a home and feel like they're financially stable, and so it's harder. And
No.
people bring these stressors, I think, into the workplace. I think they also, with it in the workplace, is disappointment because I'm not where my parents were. I'm not where I thought I'd be, and it makes people feel some kind of way.
No, no, you're right. And you got some really valid points. And it's interesting that we're on this part. And we haven't even got to the meat of the subject yet. But I think that the stresses that are prevalent today are certainly having an effect on people as far as their overall well-being. We can see that. We know that it's affecting people's mental and emotional and physical health in ways that perhaps we didn't have to go through when we were coming up.
Not at all.
But the opposite play on that is that there are more opportunities that are available. Like when you talked about when you came up, right, there were maybe 3 or 4 or 5 spots that you would land at, right?
Hmm.
And it was the same way for my older brothers and sisters. I remember the same situations with them when they were coming out of high school and stuff, that they didn't have a lot of options. So it was like you go to the local factory or, military was an option, or you try and find some job working, cleaning up or something like that. But we have more opportunities now, and I would think that the more opportunities we have would kind of help to level set some of the stresses, but it doesn't seem to do that. It just seems
Well,
to add to it.
so opportunity doesn't help you if you don't know how to access it
Yeah,
and if you don't know what to do with it. You can have opportunity, but if you don't know how to operationalize that
that's
opportunity,
true.
and you're not willing to take the time to work. I mean, I think two things are happening in that. Yes, there's opportunity, but everyone doesn't have the skill to operationalize and make that opportunity become something. Like yourself having evolved, through your health journey and then starting a podcast and then having a tech business. I mean, you do multiple things and maybe innately you know how to, it just clicks for you. Me too,
Right,
but it
right,
doesn't for everyone. And so they're out here thinking, wow, I need opportunity. I don't want to live in my mother's basement, but I don't really know what to do.
right.
And so it's harder for them. I think, there's a guarantee. It is more challenging, I think. And I think young people sometimes feel, and people in work feel like, gosh, I drank the juice. I went to school. I worked hard. I have this job. And yet I feel like this system has failed me because I don't
Right.
have the life and the comfort and the security that I thought I would have. In fact, I feel worse. And I
Mm,
think we have to help people manage that, right? I think we have to manage burnout and we have to manage our expectations of life. Because everybody's not going to have a Maserati, and
right,
everybody's not
right,
going to be
right,
an
right.
influencer, and everybody's not going to have a $5 million house.
Yeah,
But can
yeah,
you manage your expectations and be happy? But yeah, I don't have a $5 million house. I have a 1,500 square foot condo in a
yeah.
very nice area of my home. But I have as much as I can live in, enjoy, and clean, and that
That's
works.
it.
I'm happy.
I love it. I love it. Melanie, I can tell you gonna be an awesome awesome guest today. We already having too much fun and we haven't even got started. So listen, I wanted to ask you because we got we got a lot of things I want to talk to you about, but since you work in that trauma space. And when you started in nursing, did did you transition into that? Like, can you explain to us like what a trauma informed expert is from I
Yes.
guess in the medical space?
Yes. So my expertise is in helping organizations, healthcare, and others help them create cultures of wellness and emotional safety for their team members. And here's the reason why. Uh, It's estimated that even by the Center of Disease Control that close to 70% of all Americans have had at least one adverse childhood experience. That's community violence, divorce of a parent with a chronic illness, some kind of assault. And then the challenges and ACEs that are come because of the social drivers of health: poverty, lack of housing, no access to food, healthcare, and education. So we're talking about 70% of all people almost have had at least one of these exposures in their youth. And then there's another 17%, over 70% of Americans that have said they have four or more of these adverse experiences. So you bring that together, and we have a society that is traumatized, workplaces with traumatized people because people don't leave their past at home.
That's right.
They show up with all of their history. And so I came into this space really during COVID when we were helping people deal with the trauma in our hospitals of the losses, the work trauma, and the anxiety around that experience. And it amplified the historical pain and trauma people brought with them. And so I became focused on in my work helping that organization help people. And
Okay.
then I began to help other people in other places. And it has led to me being able to have conversations with people like yourself.
Oh, wow, nice. So you transitioned into this app. I mean, you saw that there was a need, but you transitioned into it around COVID time when you started
Mhm.
focusing on it. Okay. So you mentioned a lot of different things that happen that could cause trauma, right, to folks and how they deal with it. When you're working with people that are experiencing trauma, do you have trouble oftentimes with them even realizing that they're suffering from trauma? How do they know that they're dealing with some type of trauma?
Well, people have to be my framework is around called Stop It, Bobby. You have to scan yourself first of all and be honest with what you are feeling. How are you showing up? So example, if you find your stomach in knots, if you were just at opening email, do meetings make you cause anxiety? Do certain people make you anxious? Are you short-tempered with your family? Are you even having constipation, muscle pain, your gut problems? There are many signs that we have physically and signs that we might see in ourselves at work in our interactions, having trouble making decisions, micromanaging. All these things can in the workplace are signs that we're stressed, burned out, and may have had some trauma. Some trauma comes from our life before work, and then there's trauma that happens in the workplace. So
Okay.
I think to reframe that, to consider To know when you've had trauma in your life history, you have to really look at what happened in your life. You might need to get some professional help. We physicians can't heal themselves. A physician, even a surgeon, can't cut on himself, really. He's got to have another expert.
That's
So
right.
we have to be willing to get help and look at our behaviors so that we do change. Then you have to be willing to do the change. You have to be true to yourself. And then you have to own that I need a change. You have to own and prioritize yourself. And then you have to be willing to change your habits. And then you have to be willing to thrive because it's a choice to live in your trauma. Well, I'm
Mhm.
just, I'm living what happened yesterday. You can't go forward and look back at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Because we work with a lot of leaders and we work with a lot of professionals that are in high demanding and stressful roles. A lot of times, I run across people who you can kind of identify who may have suffered from trauma, but they don't seem to acknowledge it or realize it or even know what to do about it. But as we're talking today, which is, primarily about administering self-care and understanding that self-care is foundational to our success in life, period. That if we're not taking care of self, I mean, what's the point, right? And sometimes you can be so busy or think you so busy and you got all this stuff that you're doing that you are not taking care of yourself, which oftentimes lead to collapse, burnout, other things that folks may be experiencing. When you're working with professionals, do you see this a lot where they're constantly on the grind, but they're not really focused on how to take care of themselves?
Absolutely, because that is my mantra. We have to stop it. Where in the world, we're one of the only few, why in this country do we celebrate exhaustion?
That's a
Hey,
good point. Right.
have you ever been in a conversation, Bobby, with somebody say, I'm tired, man.
Yep.
I've been doing my job is pushing me. I've got, these many programs and projects, and I have all this work at home. And then somebody else, you in a group, and then somebody else chimes in and says, well, if you think you're tired, I've been doing more than that. I've had do 3 transitions and 2 software updates. And what are we doing? You
Right.
know,
Right.
what are we doing? At the busyness does not one mean that you are effective.
That's right. That's right.
Busyness does not mean that you are going to get the promotion either.
That's right.
You want to do a good job when you're in your job, but your job and your role should not be all that defines you.
That's right.
You have to be a whole person. You show up at work, but how else do you show up? When you're with your family, do you just think about your job? Did you forget about the fact that you used to sing, you used to run, you
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
play an instrument?
Yeah.
What else
Yeah.
do you want? How else do you want to show up? There are more ways to make an impact than on your job because when they don't need you anymore, how are you going to pivot?
That's right.
And
That's
the
right.
reality is they might not need you anymore.
That's right.
I've been through 5 restructurings in my career.
Really.
5. I'm an expert.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that sometimes we get caught up in trying to satisfy the bosses. We have and going back to what you talked about earlier, where we celebrate this exhaustion. A working 60-hour week seems to be celebrated. And you feel like if I do this, then, it's going to get me some points with the boss, or perhaps it's going to help elevate me in the promotion. Mm, a lot of times those are no guarantees, but
No
the fact
guarantees.
is you're sacrificing your health and your well-being for something that could possibly end for you in terms of them letting you go or going through a restructure or whatever. Why are we wired that way from your opinion? What causes us to feel that we need to be like this?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is, just the American dream, right? We're all wired to have that dream of that house and the 2.5 kids and the 2 or 3 vacations.
Right.
And then we see these same messages mirrored on social media, mirrored on television, mirrored in advertising. And we've all kind of drank the juice too. some degree.
Right.
Life is so expensive. The reality is you do have to do more than you did before. You
Uh-huh.
know, I have to do more in all honesty than I did when I was 20 because I have the same extra bills everybody else has.
Right. That's it. We
Right, and
all do.
everything's gone up. I
Yep.
mean, the world in which I could actually have a fulfilling, independent life on $6.25 an
Amazing.
hour. I
That's
looked at my
amazing.
first and my so don't tell nobody, but I told everybody though. I looked at my Social Security statement when I first worked my first job. I made 8,000 a year on my, when it since I first started working. I'm like,
Yeah.
how did I live on eight
I
thousand
know, right?
dollars? How did I do it?
That's
I'm a
amazing.
miracle worker. I was
Yeah.
a miracle worker and I didn't know it.
Gosh. But you know what? I think though, Melanie, that those times that, you come along in times where I think, I've come along in where you appreciate those days because I think there was resilience and stick to itiveness and some other things that were developed from a character standpoint because we didn't have a lot of choices, a lot of options, and so now I think you kind of vibe off of that a little bit, even as some people may struggle with the change in environment. They may struggle with being let go from a job or not having income for a certain amount of time. Things like that could break some people because you haven't, went through but I just think sometimes those things they kind of give us a level of appreciation and resilience that's needed to function in today's world because it's ever changing. It's always
It's
changing.
ever changing. And I want your listeners to know that even if they're experiencing burnout and they find, they're listening to themselves, they're scanning and they're saying, hey, I am burnt out. I am tired. They can make a change by making some different habits. I also want everyone to be encouraged to know that they are resilient, that because they're showing up every day, they have established some level of resilience in some areas of their lives, and that should be celebrated. And they should hold on to that knowledge and empower and use it to move forward, to
Right.
create the life that they want, not what they feel everyone is telling them they should have. I mean,
That's
if
right.
you're happy, I got a friend, powerful woman. She was a vice president, regional vice president. I mean,
Mhm.
the pharmaceutical company. I mean, the girl was just slaying it, okay?
Mhm.
And she got her a tiny house.
Did she?
She got a tiny
A lot of
house.
people are doing that. Yeah, a lot of people are doing
She
that.
got a tiny house, and
Yeah,
she said, "You know what?" She just got restructured as well. She says, "I'm not going back." She says, "I am in a tiny house. I don't need that much money. So I'm going to change how I live and be happy." So I
that's
think we
nice.
have to be courageous and have those conversations and make those decisions for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean I love it. You're right, and that's exactly what it boils down to is is going back to self care. Really, I
It
mean,
is.
it's just going back to that because like you talked about your friend making a decision, right? To say, hey, look, I'm gonna scale down because I appreciate my happiness and contentment more so than the pursuit of all these other things. And I think that's so incredibly important. But speaking of that, Melanie, do you work primarily with women in your coaching? Because now you're coaching people and helping them in this space as far as dealing with trauma and just kind of helping them from a leadership standpoint. Is it primarily women you work with?
I work primarily women
Okay.
because I also help women around the hormonal changes, menopause transitions, life transitions, and so more primarily women, but I will support men as well, but primarily women. My husband works with me, Bobby.
Nice.
My
Nice.
husband is my
Nice.
business partner, Victor Gray, 37 years. He's my sweetie. And, he's
Nice. Good
still my
stuff.
sweetie. He's been my sweetie forever. He will always be. But he is a leadership expert, and he coaches people, and he coaches people around the 5 behaviors of a team. He's DISC certified. I mean, he's really awesome. So I do primarily the women, and then he helps the guys.
Okay. All right. I love the tag team. That's good. You guys are covering the bases. That's good
Yes.
work. That's good work. So when you actually have, I mean, what are some of the ideal scenarios for you in terms of where you feel you're best suited to help women. What are some of the areas that you feel like you're the strongest in adding value to their lives as it pertains to wellness and so forth?
Yes, I am really strong in helping women prioritize themselves and have the courage and confidence as their confidence coach to make the pivots they need to make. Whether it, to make hard choices, to listen, do I need to change this position? Do I really need to work this hard? How am I missing my children? How am I showing up for myself? And to have the courage to define for themselves who they are and how they want to live.
Mm,
And so I really help women with those transitions, career transitions, menopause, having confidence, courage, discussions around hard questions with life.
so let me ask you this. Let's say you have a woman that may come to you and they have been working, and I've seen this happen actually. They've been working in the industry for, let's say, 30 years. And now they're in their 50s or, maybe approaching 60. That industry's gone, or they no longer know who they are or what to do next. So they find themselves having to pivot in their late 50s or 60s. How do you help someone who may have been doing this one thing all of their life, primarily most of their life, but now they got to shift?
Help them, one, look at their transferable skills because everyone's has done, they have skills from their job. They have skills that they curated from PTA, service at church, being on boards, being in the community. And we look at the totality of what they've done in life. That body of experience has transferable skills that are still needed in the workplace. And I help them align those transferable skills and be able to repackage them in and reframe them for other industries, those skill sets into other industries and other opportunities where they might be able to leverage themselves as a business owner of some type.
Okay, that's awesome. You're right. The transferable skills. So they picked up some stuff along the way. So you help them identify what they can use that they picked up that can translate into perhaps something different now. I love that concept. Now you mentioned something about confidence coach. Now somebody comes to you and they are lacking I mean, especially, in the area of confidence. How do you help someone gain confidence?
Well, I think first it's important to understand why. Now, to some degree, that's where understanding someone's past, their past trauma, because we don't always walk away from the messages of our youth, of our parents.
Right.
Everyone wasn't parented well. And so I help them understand what is the trauma, what is their historical traumatic link that they need to break. Is there a story in their own mindset that they need to break? And in some cases, they need then to get clinical help. And then I will help them connect with that, licensed practitioner who is actually more a clinical therapist, and they can work with that therapist and then later maybe come back with me. So I
Okay.
help them determine if it was I am not an LPC, but I'm helpful in helping people understand if they need that, then when they're healthy, they can come back.
Okay, got it, got it.
I can help them. But then there are other people who just are they spend so much time being validated on social media that they have this whole imposter syndrome thing working and they don't have
Yep,
confidence. I'm like, you need to stop it.
yep,
At some point, you do
yep,
have to just embrace yourself and say, I'm okay.
yep,
Everyone's a gift
yep.
to somebody if they're willing to.
Mhm.
Everyone's a gift to some level if they're willing to believe it. And being a gift is not and your value is not always equated to money and things.
That's right.
It's your relationships. It's the impact in your giving, in your character that make you great and your gift, not just things. And I
Yeah.
help people broaden their perspective of their worth so that
Wow.
they have confidence and see themselves differently.
Love it, love it. Now, how does this compare the coaching aspect which as I'm listening at you, your passion for the coaching and the investment that you put into people seems to be, I mean, it just comes off the radar. It's so strong, right? So how do you compare what you do now compared to just the medical industry where you were basically just working perhaps as a nurse and you were still providing care? Is this something you feel that you're more called to do, perhaps?
Well, it's what I think what I my calling hasn't changed at all in helping people. It's just how I do it.
Okay.
So when I was in the corporate setting, I was able to talk to people through the relationships we had at work. And you helping them use resources and reframe their thinking and do well in what their strength and what they were doing as a leader. In this role, I am able to choose now who I work with because I coach who I want, right? If it's a
Right,
good fit.
right, right.
So what I
Yeah,
is not do that is different is how I do it and the framework in
got
which
it.
I do it.
Love it,
People
love it,
come to
love
me.
it. Yeah, right, right. That's different. That's a different and I'm sure you enjoy the opportunities to work with a vast array of different folks and still being able to serve, and that certainly comes across in what you're doing. Now, do you work with individuals, right? But do you work with companies that may be trying to find ways to bring wellness into the workplace and help increase productivity amongst the employees?
Yes.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I actually just created my 2026 guide for companies. It gives them an assessment to determine where there are gaps in their wellness support for their team members. And I have a array of courses and trainings that I can provide for for their organizations and teams.
Okay. Now, yeah, one of the big issues, and maybe you could speak to this, that a lot of businesses are dealing with is retention right now, holding on to good people. Because as we mentioned earlier, there are options out there. You got folks now that are working some of doing some of the gig work out there. So there are a lot of different ways you can work now.
Hmm.
So businesses are losing fundamentally sometimes good people. So how would you help them address the retention aspect if you were to go in and talk with the business?
Well, you have to create a culture that people want to come to. I think that two things. I think companies have to realize that people aren't going to stay 40 years anymore.
Right, 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 right.
They're not doing that. But you might be able to retain them for 5 years. And what you need to do is to create that environment where they feel safe, where they feel valued, and they're engaged. Because gone is the day when I was growing up, well, where it was a top down. I'm telling you this is what you're doing, and so you're
Yeah,
doing it. People they want a conversation, and they deserve it, right? Because their work is challenging, and the work in many instances can be hard. So I would tell organizations, offering a yoga class is not good enough. Offering EAP is not good enough. You
right.
have to create a culture, a trauma-informed culture in which you're sensitive to the fact that people have a history and a story before they come to you. So
That's
you
right.
have to be conscious of how you talk to people.
That's right.
Can't just sometimes a conversation beat an email. Wouldn't you prefer someone to say, "Hey, Bobby, can we meet for just a minute?
Yep.
I want to
Yep.
tell you about this new initiative that my boss, because I'm your director, but my boss, the VP, is asking me to do
Mhm.
for the team, and I'm going to need your help." Would you feel better about engaging with me then versus
Yep.
me saying, "Hey, this is what we have to do now. We
You're
sign off
right.
and you get with it,"
You're right.
and just
You're right.
firing off an email based on a certain policy. We now are doing, just talk to people.
Right.
People are still relational. We have technology, but we still have to have the soft skills of relationship. So I would tell leaders to focus on relationship. Let people know you see them.
That's right.
Call them by their name. Learn something about them.
Mm.
People love hearing their name.
They do. They do. No, you're 100% on point with that. And I think that's where it's all lost at because there's so much like from top down where the executives are pushing the managers and managers are pushing the employees, and they're all focused on one thing, and that's the bottom line, and that's
Mhm.
production. When you working with companies, are you working primarily with top level executives, the C-suite? Or are you dealing with the managers who are actually supervising the
It's a variety. It's a variety, actually, because often a C-suite leader might know that there's a problem lower in another realm in their organization, and they might wanna start there. It varies. No, I do have a training for executive leaders so that they can see the value and then because they have to embrace it first. I mean,
That's right.
modeling is important. You have to practice what you preach.
Mhm.
And so it is important that C-suite leaders, executive leaders understand and value trauma-informed care, understanding that everyone has a story, to see the humanity that everyone brings, because you have to model it in order for it to be taught and embraced in the whole organization.
No, I completely agree with you on that. You're right. I mean, it starts at the top. They have to be able to show it themselves. Now, when you are working with individuals, what's the process that you take them through when it comes to identifying whether they would be a good candidate to work with you from a coaching standpoint?
Well, I tell everyone I'm a straight shooter. So if you don't want an honest conversation, then you really don't want me. I am the most compassionate and caring person, but I don't feel like anyone wants to use up their resources and my time for me to blow smoke at them. You know,
That's
I
right. That's
want they
right.
have to be willing to want truth, have an honest conversation, understand that talking with me is a safe place, and they have to be willing to do the work. Because there's time with me, but the real work comes when leave a session with me. Are you
Right.
going to follow through? Are
Right.
you on the activities, on the work that you have to do to get the result that you want to get? It's a partnership, and if you don't wanna enter the partnership, then it wouldn't be worth your time.
Right. No, I completely agree. What do you say to people who may be apprehensive about coaching? Maybe they had coaching in the past that was bad or it wasn't effective. I'm a real big advocate myself for coaching. I mean, I always believe if you find someone that can help you get to where you need to be because they've gotten there or they have experienced something, because we all learn from each other. And sometimes you just need
Mhm.
somebody that you don't know that can look outside of your circumstances and see things that you can't see. So I'm an advocate for it. But for people who may be challenged by it, what would you say to them in terms of why coaching is so valuable?
Well, it's valuable because you are not talking to yourself. I mean, the challenge with all of us is that we talk to ourselves and sometimes we answer back and not always in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
having a third party, a third voice can be helpful to you. Coaching gives you insight and potentially access to resources and thoughts that you wouldn't have on your own. They give you a different perspective so that you can have more confidence in what you really know inside is what you need to do. I think people generally know what they need,
Right.
but they just
Right.
need the support and encouragement and someone to hold them accountable for the follow through. I would also tell people, if you're thinking about coaching, interview a couple of people, right? You're a consumer
Mhm.
you're a consumer of your time and your resources. So check out a few people and see who you really feel connected to. Don't just pick the first coach you see.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I tell you, Melanie, you're doing a great work in this self-care space. And I'm certainly hoping that some of our folks in our audience would reach out to you. Is it a standard assessment you do? Is it sort of like just maybe a phone call, initial phone call or
And
consultation?
then you might have an initial discovery call.
Okay. Okay. Got it. All right. So how about you do this? How about you tell our folks how they can get in contact with you? Because obviously we can't cover everything in this session. If they want to get more information from you, maybe even take advantage of a discovery call, how can they do that? How can they reach you?
Yes, they can go to my website, Dr. Melanie Gray, theconfidencecoach.com, and they can also reach out on LinkedIn, Melanie Gray, PhDRN.
All right, love it, love it. So listen, I always like to ask, I guess, as we close out the show, that you can drop some words of wisdom or some parting gifts to our listener audience. Just a few things you like to share that you think would be add value to them and a long lasting impact.
I would tell them to know that they are a gift. You are a gift and you have value in the world. And you must take care of yourself. You
That's right.
cannot get health back. Self care is health care, and you do not have to apologize or validate the time that you take to exercise, eat right, read a book, enjoy life. You deserve it because you are a gift. Have that confidence and know it.
I love it. I love it. Well, Dr. Melanie, thank you so much for all of the wealth of information you've shared with us in a short time. You've certainly been a gift to us today, and appreciate all of the words of wisdom. And thank you so much for joining our Well to Lead podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bobby. I appreciate it.
All right, fantastic. Well, folks, that's it for us today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And until next week, you guys take care and have a blessed day. See you then. Bye bye.